Welcome to Golden Black Live. This is a treat for me. It seems like every week I get this. It's somebody I love to talk basketball with and don't get to talk to enough. Bruce Parkinson joins me, and Bruce is a man in the news today, and we'll go why. I think Purdue fans know why, and that was of course Braden Smith within two assists of tying Bruce's record, three from breaking it, and we'll get into that and more in our interview. I want to thank State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com, and of course Triple X on the Hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. And we're going to go a little long, go a couple segments with Bruce today. Bruce is joining us from Florida. And I got to get you got to get started with, you go to so many games at Purdue, and I see you all the time up there, and your compadres, your fellow teammates and fellow Purdue friends are there often. The irony is that tonight against UCLA, unless we bring a helicopter down for you, you're not going to be there because you got some family obligations and a trip. But tell us about that, but then also who will be representing you, which I think is really cool, that will be there in the stands, because Braden Smith just needs 2 to tie and 3 to break against UCLA.
It's really unusual, Alan, not to be there. Pretty much the last several years, we've gone to Florida in February for about 10 days, and we have to wait till Austin's Butler schedule comes out to see when they're on the road. So that's usually about September that you have to book the vacation. And so this was a 10-day period that he finished against UConn at home on Saturday. We left to come down here on Sunday, not with any thought at all as to whether this time period could be a period where Braden would break the career assist record. So of all times to be gone, I'm in those seats all the time. We sit right behind Coach Odom and his family. My mom and some of her friends will be there, and Austin and his oldest child, Ren, are going to be there. So they will be representing the family, unfortunately. And I've already talked to Dustin and Jenny, Braden's mom and dad. They know that they know where we are. So wish I could be there.
Well, to give some context too, Bruce Parkinson, obviously a Hall of Fame member, holds that assist record, played at Purdue. First year freshmen were eligible again. Of course, he started 4 years, actually 5 years. We'll maybe talk about that process too, because he had an injury and was out a year, and finished in 1977 under Coach Fred Schausler, recruited by George King, I believe is correct, and Bob King, of course. And then, of course, Austin Parkinson, Bruce Parkinson's son, Purdue fans know, played for Coach Gene Cady in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? And, of course, now the head coach at women's basketball at Butler. So we'll get you all up to speed. So you have to, because the story made the broadcast last week, right before Purdue's meltdown in the second half, but told a story about your relationship with the Smith family, and it really goes back a long way to Braden's dad and your son. Give us the full rundown on how this has all evolved over the years, because it's a cool story.
Well, Dustin grew up in Kokomo, went to school with Northwest. He was a year ahead of Austin and Trent, but he was a year ahead of Austin. And from the time they were probably 6 years old, Dustin's dad, Dick Smith, and I and another gentleman coached their Carver ball team. It's not AAU at the time, but really up through 8th grade, we coached kind of the AAU version at the time. Then they played with each other in high school. Again, Dustin was a year ahead of Austin, and they were very successful. Dustin, really, they had 2 point guards. And one thing, if you met Dustin today, he's probably an inch taller than me. Yeah. But he was small all growing up. I mean, small, and didn't weigh very much. He was probably, maybe when he graduated from high school, I'm guessing like 5'10"-ish, and didn't weigh very much. Just like Braden was coming through Westfield. And so they were both kind of undervalued because of their size. And now, Dustin is probably 6'3". Yeah. And so that was part of the story. And so When we moved to Noblesville in 2017, we're closer to Westfield High School than we are to Noblesville High School. And of course, Jenny and Dustin and the family are in Westfield.
Yeah.
And so I think when I first saw Braden, it might have been a few AAU type games that his dad was coaching. And he was really little. I mean, at eighth grade, he was really little. And then I probably saw 30 games in high school. And it was incredible, Alan, watching. And it's as well true at Purdue, is how much that young man improved from year to year to year, up through even now this year compared to last year. So I probably saw 30 games in high school. And of course, as Matt tells, that the problem with recruiting was some of that period was the COVID period.
Yeah.
And what kind of caused me to finally call and said, you guys need to make an offer to this guy. He had just been down for an unpaid visit to an IU game. And they basically they hadn't offered either at that time. But Archie had rolled out virtually the carpet for him, spent an hour after the game talking with him. And I mean, I don't think at that point, I think they favored Purdue a bit, Braden and the family, but he was just looking for somebody to believe in him. And I finally called and just told about the history of just Braden's or Dustin's growth to where he is now. I said, I think he's going to grow after high school. And I said, this guy, he's the real deal. And I said, first thing you need to know about him, he might be smarter about basketball than any of your assistant coaches. And Matt laughed, and and it was just a statement to be made as intellectually, in addition to how committed and how hard he has worked every year. And you guys are seeing that now at Purdue. Anybody that's around the program will know how committed and how hard he has worked. But he was his basketball knowledge and his ability to make others better. His 3 games in his senior year in high school, he had carried his team. I think it was the number 1, number 4, number 9, something like that. It's that Hamilton County section, basically. He played the 3 best games I have ever seen by any high school player in my history, all on a broken foot. It was unbelievable. And so we go way back. We've been talking to Dustin and Jenny and the respect that I have for their basketball knowledge. And I was saying something to somebody the other day that I can't imagine what that dinner table is like when now Maddox, the 7th grader, is coming up. And I saw him play a couple times this year. He's the real deal too.
Yeah, I saw him. I think he was seated next to Dustin at during the IU game, and I think it would give Purdue or anybody in recruiting something to look forward to. Because my guess is he won't be overlooked when the time comes if he's good enough. That part of it is interesting. All right, when you have watched him improve and physically, and there's been a lot documented about how he not only worked out in his garage and got weights going even in his days at Westfield. But I'm interested in what nobody evaluates point guards better than you do, but how, he has gotten better this year, and what you see this year that's a little different. What next step level has he made this year? Obviously his numbers are great everywhere you turn. He's become a little bit more offensive, but what else? What other nuanced things do you see that he's really improved in?
Yeah, that's been an interesting discussion between. I had a discussion with Braden and more really with his dad. And when he, of course, I think one of the things in context, Alan, that everybody needs to think about, Braden has played 102 games, I think, in his career. Until this year, he never lost a non-conference game.
Yeah.
Would that be right?
Yeah, right. That's correct.
So I have to believe that those 102 games, we have always had an extremely difficult preseason schedule, unlike our friends down south. On their preseason schedule. So he's done what he's done against what I believe, I think it's provable, the best 103 game schedule any college basketball team has played so far. And so he's been obviously blessed with Zach and other good players who are committed like Trey and Fletcher. But to be able to play with Zach for 2 years, that's incredible. But the one thing that this year, different with Zach being gone, people are seeing what we would have seen in high school if you would have followed him. He's a pass first point guard, but that kid can score. Yeah. I mean, he can flat out score. And the other thing he could do that I didn't see him doing his first 2 years. In fact, I mentioned this to Matt after Frank's celebration when we had a chance to talk. This year, you're seeing two things from Braden. Not that they haven't been there, but he's looking to score more, and they need for him to score more.
Yeah, no doubt.
And he could always do that. I mean, he could have scored more in high school than he did, but he was always trying to involve his teammates just because he is a pass-thinking first point guard. But the other thing he did in high school that he didn't do much the first 2 years, and that's why I said I talked to him once about it and his dad, and that is he can steal. He is a good defensive player. Now, we all make mistakes. We all take a few chances here and there, and you go away from one guy but I had said to him, I think it was into his first year, maybe beginning of his second, that I said, Braden, why aren't you jumping passing lanes like you used to? And why aren't you? He used to be really good when the ball went down low to the center. He is so smart. He has had a knack of going down and stealing. As soon as that big guy, he would come up from one side or the other and steal it. And he said, and Matt confirmed that when I talked to him at Frank's celebration, that Matt thought that he was too risky in some of the defensive decisions he was making. And so he shut that down. This year, it's almost like you can see even a different degree of trust in their conversations and how much they rely on him to run things on the offensive and defensive ends. But you're seeing now, I think he's averaging over a couple steals a game. He's had a couple of six steals with 6 games. And so you're seeing that you didn't see the last 2 years. And of course, now they need him to score more. And so every year there's been something that's been added to the equation. Now we're seeing the full scope of his skills and abilities, I think.
No, when you look at that, and we talked offline, you are, to be clear, Bruce Parkinson is the last person to toot his own horn, but he was and Purdue's had, you can debate what are point guards. Billy Keller was a great player and certainly kind of did perform that role with Rick Mount and Herman Gilliam, maybe in a slightly different way than Bruce Parkinson did. But Bruce Parkinson's numbers are, and Bruce told me this, and I had done a little remarkably the same as Braden's. I think he said you were within a point average, your career point scoring average. He's at 12 something, you were at 11 something. Your assists per game average, very, very close. That steals thing, but people forget now. Joe Barry Carroll has the only triple double in Purdue history. 1976, I think it was at Arizona. He had double-digit blocks, but you came very, very close several times to triple doubles. But that's the interesting thing that you guys are so similar in numbers and in a time where. And again, they didn't keep steals, right? For your first 3 years, you had said that before. So talk about that. That's just a unique situation. And have you ever had that conversation with Braden on that?
Not so much about, the way Braden has played has been the complete point guard.
Yeah.
And so we've always kind of talked about that, but his commitment to rebounding. Yeah. He's 6 foot. He's our second leading rebounder.
Yeah.
And he's averaging 4.7 or almost 5 rebounds a game. And this year, and they need him to be better because Zach's not back there now.
Yeah.
and so they need him to be better defensively, and he's showing that. So, the other thing, in addition to that strength of schedule, Alan, that Braden has been having to play,
Yeah.
is that to do what he's doing, he's going to end up with probably 1,800 to 2,000 points, probably 900 assists, probably, let's see, 600 rebounds.
Yeah.
But you have to play a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
And he and I both, I think he's at 33 and I was like at 34 or something like that. And to do what he's doing, and the stuff that I did, you've got to play. I mean, I had never been, not that I've been worried about these assists being broken, because when Braden came, I thought this is the guy, and this is the guy I want to do that, because he sees the game like I do in terms of the full breadth of responsibilities. But he's got to play, that 33 minutes, probably playing too many minutes.
And that average is going to go up because he's this year. I mean, he's hardly coming out. So yeah,
exactly. And add the strength of schedule, and then that he's had to play, and the number of games, and then now, Alan, I think the other thing, he's done so well that I think our Boiler fans expect him to be perfect.
Yeah. That's a hard thing.
It's
you went through that too. I think as a player too. I mean, your numbers were so big in your first couple of years. That's a challenge, in terms of that.
It's a challenge, and February is a hard month. That's one of the things Coach Katie was always good at, and that's been good at over the years is winning games in February, because it's a long haul. But he's had, for somebody to come in and do what he's doing, he started every game, and he's played almost most of the game. So for somebody to think about breaking like the assist records or anything else, that he's going to set these things, this collection from a point guard standpoint, that nobody, I don't think, is ever going to touch. But he's now having to do that when he's the number one person on the scouting report. And Austin was talking, he has a young lady on his team, Kylan McGuff. She's a transfer from Belmont, a senior. And she's Coach McGuff's Ohio State women's basketball coach's daughter. Mm-hmm. She is our best player by a long shot. But in college, she has never been the number one player on the scouting report. Braden is the number one player on any scouting report now. And he's probably had more attention given to him in terms of double teams than, can you think of any player in the country that has had more double teams, that now they know that if they stop him, they have a good chance of beating us. And now in these last 4 games, we've played against 4 really good teams. And it's been, but I mean, games, minutes, then execution. And it's just been incredible what Braden has done.
And that person, his personality, the family's personality. I don't think he's never lost. That's another thing. And losing and being on a 4-game streak, I can't imagine he's ever had that experience in any level of playing, because he just flat doesn't like to lose. Talk about that, and maybe not just, and you can't speak for him, but just that psyche of, you got to get out of the rut. And of course, UCLA is not going to be a cakewalk. Neither will Rutgers or Illinois in the regular season. Just no cakewalks in this league. But talk about how you think he may, just based on what you've seen over the years, how he may lead, because he's also, like you were, a leader on this team. The guys are looking to him to get him out of this to some extent. How do you think he responds in that deal?
I have to believe that it's, I haven't talked to him, of course, over this period of time. But knowing him, I mean, you could, if he was asked the question about, well, tell me about yourself, it might be like, I use football coach. Well, Google me. I went. And Braden is the one who's usually, he did have some early years in high school where, his team quality wise was not like some of the top 10 to 15 teams. So it wasn't like he didn't lose.
Okay.
But his he's never faced the over a period of these 4 games. Just think about those 4 teams.
Yeah.
I mean, just think of 3 of those on the road.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that he's struggling, but I think the team is struggling, and I think that Matt and the coaches are trying to figure some things out. Until we get some performance, just even a bit of performance from the 3 and 4 position to help Fletcher and Trey and Braden out. I mean, Braden was delivering set shot threes to those corners, and if they took them, we just haven't been making them. And so now Trey gets more. Trey, Fletcher, and Dustin get more focus. And I mean, I just can't imagine the energy that he is, and particularly because we're talking about Braden.
Yeah.
So he comes down, he goes over one high pick as hard and as fast as he can, and then the other center pops out. Now they do the reverse. He comes back again as hard, and those guards are physically trying to fight over those picks, and then they pop out. Many of the teams are double teaming on the other side of the pick, and it's that way almost the whole game.
Yeah, I know.
And so the energy that he is required, Mike Steele and I, one of my teammates that you know well, we're talking about this the other day. I don't think there's anybody in the country that's ever had the physical demands of energy that he has during the course of the game, given how good he is and the attention that he draws from. If it's just one player, he's going to win that every time.
Yeah.
But when it's 1.5 or sometimes 2, and then you miss a couple shots, or you get fouled and it's not called, or you make a great pass. I know I've talked to Dustin about this. Braden will pass to Fletcher, and inevitably Fletcher will pass fake and go someplace else with the ball rather than taking a really open shot. And I know I think Matt's been talking a little bit to Fletcher about that. But when I'm working so hard to get the ball to a guy to score, I want that guy to score.
Yeah.
And I don't want him pass faking to piddle around with a couple more dribbles and then take a shot that's worse than one I just gave him. Yeah. And Braden can't afford to do that. But when I was playing, and of course, I didn't have to worry about that with Garrett and Kendrick because they never passed after I gave it to them. But I would be going nuts with that pass fake after Braden gets rid of it.
All right, well said. All right, we're going to take a short break. A lot more to discuss with Bruce Parkinson, a little bit about his career, a little more about Braden Smith, and of course, where Purdue basketball is, where it may be throughout the rest of the season. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple minutes on Gold and Black Live.